Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, students. I hope all of you are fine and would be doing wonders at your homes. I have started a new series of lectures on the novel Pride and Prejudice. Today, in this lecture, I will discuss a critical summary along with some uh, critical analysis of the novel Pride and Prejudice. So, it's our first lecture on this series of this series, and in this series I will narrate some of the important uh, events and will criticize them or analyze them critically. So I start here. The narrator begins with the statement: it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. This is one of the most famous opening lines in literature. Not only an opening line, but as one of the most famous lines in English literature. This is an ironic statement regarding marriage and fortune of the people of the time. But as we see that this novel opens in this fashion, and this is the understatement of the novel is a very serious one, though it is a very ironic and a kind of a light-hearted irony, but it gives a great and serious note or statement on the situation regarding marriages of the women of the time. The narrator begins to the story one day in their modest house in Longbourn. This is uh, Longbourn, a strain that belongs to Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet and her five daughters. Mrs. Bennet in her home shared some news with her husband, Mr. Bennet, that a wealthy young gentleman rather, Charles Bingley is his name, has just rented the nearby estate of Netherfield. Mr. Bennet twitters with excitement or flushes with excitement because she wants him to meet her daughters and hopefully marry one. She is the mother who is desperately in need of a husband of for her daughter or husbands for her daughters. This the very opening line of the novel. It's a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Establishes the pursuit of marriage as central to the social world of English gentry. In addition, the claim that a wealthy man must be looking for a wife shows how desperately important it was for women to marry wealthy men. In Austen's time, they had no other means of support. This has already been discussed in detail in our previous lectures, which was the introductory one that I gave you previously. So I need not to further explain this very fact to you, as you have very much acquainted this fact already. So we move forward to in the story, and we find Mrs. Bennet asking her husband to get them an introduction. Mr. Bennet purposely frustrates his wife by sarcastically replying that he'll write to give his consent for Bingley to marry any of his daughters, especially Elizabeth, whom he considers especially bright. Mr. Bennet is a person who irritates and passes sarcastic comments upon her wife because he thinks he just teases her. He is a person who has a very cynic sense, kind of sense of humor. Uh, in terms of taking an interest in their daughter's future, Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet are polars apart. yeah, pulls apart because she gets involved while he remains distant and makes jokes. She is so desperate to get her marriage daughters married, but on the other hand, Mr. Bennett too wants his daughters married, but he does not show that kind of desperateness as his wife is showing. Next, in this chapter 2, we find Mr. Bennet that he, without telling his family, Mr. Bennet visits Bingley back at home. Mr. Bennet teases his family by pretending to be uninterested in Bingley's arrival, only to then reveal his visit by asking Elizabeth when the next ball is scheduled and promising to introduce her to Bingley beforehand. He has already done things quite well, but he does not reveal these things to his family, especially to the women of his family, as it was inappropriate for women to seek a direct introduction to men. So Mr. Bennet must initially act as a mediator. As a mediator, Mr. Bennet has to go to Mr. Bingley to invite him, then to inform the ladies at home. Mr. Bennett's visit shows that even he recognizes the importance of making a match. It is not that uh, he is not interested in getting his daughters married, but he does not show that much interest as his wife is doing or showing. On hearing this news, Mrs. Bennet is delighted and praises her husband and his little joke. She promises that all the girls that they'll get a chance to dance with Bingley. This is an early sign of Mrs. Bennet's fickle character. She is a woman of a shallow character. She cannot snap from disapproval to approval. She immediately comes from this angle to the other, from nothing to something, from something to nothing. She shuttles between her whims and emotions immediately. Then Mr. Bingley pays a return visit to Mr. Bennet and is subsequently invited to dinner at Longbourn. Mr. Bingley comes to Bennet's home and invites all of the family members to dinner or to have dinner at Longbourn. Elaborate plans are made, but Bingley breaks them because of urgent business in London. He soon returns, however, along with his sister Mrs. Hurst and her husband, his youngest sister Caroline, and his friend Darcy for the upcoming ball. Here we have the arrival of the important characters of the novel, including Mrs. Hurst, is not that much important, but Caroline Bingley, sister of Mr. Bingley, and the protagonist of the novel, Mr. Darcy. They all have come, yet to be introduced to us, but they have come there. Here we find Austen focusing on just a few families of different status. This is what happens in all of his novels. इसके सारे novels ही चंद एक families के गिर्द घूमते हैं. And these families are extremely wealthy upper class members like Bingley and Darcy, and the less wealthy country gentry like Bennets, in order to reveal the class dynamics of our society on a small scale. This is what she wanted to show, and she had shown in this way that she has shown two different classes of the English class of the time or society of the time, in which she has shown two different families of wealthy or upper class, whereas another or some other families from the lower classes like Bennett's. The ball, as you have very much familiar with this word now, ball is a dance party, takes place as at Meryton. Meryton is a place there where the locals gossip about the newcomers. Everybody is talking about these newcomers, these especially about these two young lads, Darcy and Bingley. Darcy is handsome but proud and aloof. On the other hand, Bingley makes friends with everyone, dancing everyone and every dance, including several with Jane, which makes the Bennets very happy. तो यहाँ पे हम क्या हमें दो परसेप्शंस मिलती हैं दो डिफरेंट कैरेक्टर्स के बारे में. One of them is of Darcy. Darcy is handsome but proud and aloof. He seems haughty and up-nosed, whereas Bingley is of a pleasing demeanor. He makes friends with everyone and dances every dance. He is easy to talk to and he is of agreeable demeanor. And his dances, frequent dances or several dances with Jane makes the Bennets very happy. Bennet family is very happy that their girl is chosen again and again by Bingley for dance. This is brightening. This is actually uh, foreshadowing their their upcoming marriage, maybe. And we also know that balls were among the few socially acceptable venues for mingling between the sexes. Here, the locals make a character judgment based on appearance and first impressions. Since there was a very scant amount of mingling with each other, therefore, people used to make judgments about each other on appearances and first impressions. Next, Elizabeth overhears Bingley tell Darcy that Jane is the most beautiful girl he's ever seen. Note this very comment of Bingley about Jane, uh, that she is the most beautiful girl he's ever seen. Bingley demands that Darcy finds someone to dance with and suggests Elizabeth. One thing he does that he commented about Jane and designated her as the most beautiful girl he has ever seen. The second thing is that since Darcy was not dancing and standing aloof, so was Elizabeth. So Bingley says he must suggest rather to dance with Elizabeth, but Darcy says that she isn't pretty enough for him. उसने जो डायलॉग बोला था नॉवल में, अगर आप टेक्स्ट पढ़ें तो उसने कहा था शी इज नॉट हैंडसम इनफ टू टेम्प्ट मी, शी इज merely टॉलरेबल बट नॉट हैंडसम इनफ टू टेम्प्ट मी. इतनी खूबसूरत नहीं है कि उसके साथ मैं डांस करूं. एंड दिस थिंग वाज overheard by Elizabeth and is annoyed. She is greatly annoyed at this very thing. Her pride was hurt here. किसी को किसी के मुंह पे ऐसे कहना, it's a very bad thing. Initially, prideful Darcy does not think these country people are good enough for him, but he was not able to realize that Elizabeth has pride too. Though looks aren't everything to her, Darcy's insult still stings. She does not believe in looks that much as other people's do, but Darcy's insult actually hurt her feelings. Returning home after the ball, Mrs. Bennet regales her husband with an abundance of details. She is excited for Jane and convinced of Bingley's interest in her, and detests Darcy for his attitude about Elizabeth. Mr. Bennet or Mrs. Bennet's attitude towards Darcy and Bingley is already fixed, showing how strong prejudices can be once formed. This is what we realize or learn from this episode of the novel or the scene of the novel, that how deeply these prejudices are rooted when they are formed, and they are not very easy to eradicate later on when once they are made or formed or cultivated. This is what happened in the case of Darcy. He was immediately taken as a proud, haughty, up-nosed, uncouth person, whereas on the other hand, Mr. Bingley was taken as an agreeable and a pleasing kind of fellow. Upstairs, Jane and Elizabeth talk more openly about their admiration for Bingley's looks, humor, and manners after returning home. They go to their room and talk about party and especially about Bingley, and they are very much happy with Bingley's looks and humor and manners. Jane is reluctant to say anything bad about Bingley's sisters, but Elizabeth is skeptical of them. There is a difference between the two sisters where one is skeptical, the other is a naive kind of person. Jane is reluctant to say anything bad about Bingley's sisters. It doesn't mean that Elizabeth is a kind of a girl who does or say bad things about other people, but she is a discerning kind of girl who is skeptical of them. She thinks that they are educated and polished but not conceited. वो समझती है they are educated, polished, of come from a gentry of the society, but are conceited, लेकिन वो बदतमीज हैं, घुमंडी हैं. And we also note here that Elizabeth is quick to judge or analyze other people. She is so judgmental about other people and is unimpressed by the higher class. On the other hand, Jane refuses to judge anyone badly, which makes her seem angelic but also naive. She has not got the ability to judge anyone, but it makes her angelic but also naive. बुद्धू भी उसको साबित करता है. The narrator explains Bingley's background. He has a respectable family. He inherited 10 lakh pounds and may be looking to buy an estate, and he is renting Netherfield in the meantime. His sisters, Mrs. Hurst and Caroline, are very happy to follow him around. Uh, the amount of 10 lakh pounds is a lot of money, making Bingley very high class. At the same time, Bingley's lack of a home reflects his immaturity and lack of confidence in his decisions. Bingley and Darcy's friendship is explained as a meeting of opposites. Bingley's easy manner and Darcy's more stringent personality. Bingley deeply respects Darcy's judgment, but their demeanors are different. Anywhere they go, Bingley is sociable and well liked, while Darcy is always so aloof that he offends people. After the ball, Bingley was delighted with the locals, especially Jane, but Darcy considers them plain and uninteresting. Pride and Prejudice is a novel that talks about marriages. So, many other novels which talk about marriages are frequently concerned with bringing two parties with different characteristics into harmony or inclusion. Friends like Bingley and Darcy are also opposites. Each has some admirable and some weak traits that the other helps to expose and resolve. So, same thing we find in this novel where same thing is happening. Today, this is the fifth chapter of the novel, and today our lecture's last chapter of our today's lecture. In this chapter, we see that the next morning, The Bennett's women walk over to discuss the ball with neighbors. Since they have attended the ball, now they have gone to discuss it with their neighbors. Their neighbors are Sir William Lucas, Sir Lady Lucas, and Charlotte, who is their eldest daughter and is Elizabeth's close friend. The Lucas family can sympathize with the Bennets because their daughters will also need husbands. Their cause is same, so they will sympathize with each other. Everyone agrees that Bingley liked Jane. The conversation quickly shifts to Darcy. Apparently, he offended everyone who tried to speak with him. Charlotte consoles Elizabeth about Darcy's insult and wishes he would have agreed to dance, but she adds that Darcy's pride may be forgiven because of his high standing and fortune. Elizabeth responds that she could forgive his pride if he hadn't insulted her own. Here, Charlotte suggests that pride isn't always bad. Indeed, pride can help protect a family reputation or can provide the motivation to help people. Charlotte also implies that sometimes man's faults have to be overlooked when you are on the hunt for a husband. Since you are a receiving party or at the receiving end, you will have to ignore so many things. Charlotte is right here to an extent in that situation. Finally, Mary pompously lectures the group about human nature. Mary is one of the Bennet daughters or sisters. She is a kind of bookworm girl. She lectures the group of the girl on about the human nature. She clarifies that pride is a self-regard, while vanity concerns what others think of you. Mary Mary represents a very strict by the book type of morality, as we know that she is a uh, very bookish kind of girl, and that Austen makes clear needs to be tempered with experience. और वो समझती है कि चीजें क्या हैं. उसने दो फर्क किए कि प्राइड इंसान की सेल्फ रिगार्ड को कहते हैं और वैनिटी दिखावे को होते हैं कि प्राइड क्या होता है आप अपने बारे में क्या समझते हैं और ये वैनिटी क्या होती है कि आपका कंसर्न किससे होता है कि दूसरे आपके बारे में क्या कहते हैं. So students, tomorrow I hope you will be more in number to attend the class, and it is very important for you to attend the classes right now, uh, here onwards. So I say goodbye for tomorrow and for now, and tomorrow I hope that most of you will be attending the lecture. Thank you very much.